All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course, I do see that chat is working. Banal Layman first, and good morning. And hello, by the way, to Tiny Titmouse on YouTube, who keeps putting up the actual time during the videos in which each thing is talked about. You are doing God's work. Not sure which God it is, but you're doing it anyway. So excellent. Good on you. Give Tiny Titmouse a clank. Well, I would if I had a spoon and cup handy. Been sipping on an energy drink. Let's make sure that we're actually live. Yes, we are. We have a lot to talk about today. Of course, I'm going to talk about Tucker Carlson's comments with regards to the Dominion lawsuit, the filing against Fox News for 1.4 billion or some inordinate sum like that. It'll be very, very interesting. I am taking the win once again. My predictions about Tucker Carlson's personal character when he's off air turn out to be largely correct. We will get into that. There will be some qualification and context, of course, that are involved with that. It'll be funny to see people that don't like me cope. I'm talking about Fetterman. He's off the trail at the moment. He's off in Walter Reed getting treatment for severe depression. I talked about it this morning, but I think it needs a recap. And of course, East Palestine, Don Lemon completely destroying his career. At this point, he's basically done. He'll be lucky if he's allowed to have a goddamn podcast at this point. He'll be making YouTube videos, and he'll still end up getting his shit shoved in. Yana's fluffy butt. DeSantis will not win the presidency until Trump crowns him his successor. Yeah, I think if you look at all of the available polling, DeSantis is only within single digits of Trump in one single recent poll, and that's Quinnipiac, which appears to have been overestimating his support. I would agree with you. If Trump says, I'm too old for this shit, fuck it, I'm not running anymore, then it's a wide open field. Now, we will be talking about how the legacy media is extremely afraid of Donald Trump later on. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Yes, you can get beef from them. That Manx guy sent $10. No comment, thank you. Lev Polyakov, good morning, Sticks. Hope to see the cat stare into my soul today. Also, please check DM on Twitter when you can. Yes, I saw that DM. I have yet to respond to it. We'll launch right into the first news story because it is an important win for Clankdom. My judgment, once again, was adept. Tucker Carlson called Trump a demonic force, reveals it's $1.6 billion Fox News defamation suit. This is with Dominion. Of course, a bunch of the people on Fox were making statements that I don't know if I can replicate them on YouTube. They've got wonky rules at this point with regards to mud disinfo, with regards to the Dominion voting machines, and apparently in private in court filings. Because of course you've got discovery, so the internal communications there can be queried potentially legally. Tucker Carlson is not presenting the same opinion in private that he presented on air, and I'll get into why this occurred. I have a sneaking suspicion that there's a very easy to understand reason for this. He's the undisputed world champion of that. He could easily destroy us if we play it wrong. Carlson texted his Fox News producers, according to court filings in the Dominion defamation case. He called Mr. Trump a demonic force, a destroyer, adding, but he's not going to destroy us. That's because Fox News was doing something to avoid a situation that actually you can see best exhibited on the left. What did we see over the last half decade with the Justice Dems? What they did was they would go into an area where a candidate was standing for office, a neoliberal, a boring Democrat with corporate views, like a Chuck Schumer sort of liberal. And they would primary them from the left. And they realized, well, the people here lean further left than the candidate. The only reason they're voting for the incumbent is because the Democrats are perceived as further left than the Republicans. So it's basically there's a punching bag Republican, an incumbent Democrat that automatically wins. There's no competition. We're going to primary them. We're going to get somebody who can get enough signatures to get on the ballot and happens to come out from far left field, and they will destroy them. And they've been largely successful in that. Fox News has been worried about one thing throughout the Trump era. They're worried about losing audience. They're worried about money. This is a multi-billion-dollar globalist corporation that isn't even run directly and singularly in the United States. They're a globalist corporation with a global reach that is run by a globalist cabal. They are not principled conservatives. They are not telling you the truth. They are controlled opposition. Tucker Carlson has been allowed to deviate from the unipartyist line occasionally in order to create a sort of a totem, as it were. You've got Fox News. It already has broad reach. You've got a bunch of people who probably wouldn't watch your network if there weren't one or two people on the network that were telling them what they wanted to hear. And so you retain a couple of those people and you pay them a shit ton of money doing so. Internally, though, their only focus is on making sure to retain the audience. They're not doing it out of principle. And I've told you, I've warned people about this. Tucker Carlson is not a principled MAGA populist or something. He's a rich bitch working for a globalist corporation. And I chuff slightly when people, for years and years now, have told me, well, yeah, I'm not a big fan. Hey, like you, Sticks, I'm not a big fan of Fox News. But I'll give a pass to Tucker Carlson. He seems like one of the good ones. Well, now you can sit on it because fuck you, I was right. If I had a spinny chair here, I'd be levitating up near the ceiling. This is exactly what I expected would eventually happen. You'd get some internal communicate. Of course, it required a subpoena in order for that to actually happen in this case, pertinent to a lawsuit. And Tucker Carlson doesn't give a shit about Trump or populism or MAGA or any of these things. He cares about the audience retention. He cares about ratings. It's what he's fucking paid for. He realizes that his high 8-figure salary is pertinent on him being able to draw people in. He makes a shit ton of money doing this, but that doesn't mean he's principled. He'll bypass a story if it's a little too spicy. If his producers tell him to bypass it, he will do exactly what they say. They give him latitude to keep people watching them so that they won't abandon Fox News, which ultimately is a neocon/neolib unipartyist fucking legacy media outlet, and go watch something that's actually principled. They might start watching Styx Hexenhammer. They might start watching Sargon of Akkad's hot takes or something like that. We can't have that. They might watch somebody who's actually independent, not under a corporate contract. They might watch some missing link media site that at the very least, you know, even if it's got a corporate structure, it really leans to the right, like even like a Gateway Pundit or something. They might go on Rumble. They might watch OAN. Oh my God, if they don't watch us, of course, our ratings drop and then we make less what? Money. It's all about the Benji Greens to these people. Tucker Carlson doesn't give a fucking goddamn retarded shit about you or anybody else other than himself. And God bless him for that. He's a good capitalist. He's got it made. He's got a nice, strong contract. And of course, it'd throw him under the bus if he wasn't willing to put these in the filings, of course, because he'd cost him more money than he's worth even to that network, regardless of his audience draw. He's doing it for the Benjamins. He's not doing it out of some populistic fervor. It's never been his MO. It's not the MO of even people like Stossel or Greg Gutfeld on the platform. If a person is working for Fox, the person is a sellout. That's just the long and fucking goddamn short of it. I'm sorry to tell you, but you're not going to get any truth there that's not controlled opposition. So yeah, Tucker Carlson showing his true colors. There will be, by the way, copers even on this goddamn live stream. We'll say, well, no, that's out of context. Well, you can look at the context yourself. Well, Sticks, you're just stroking your own ego. Well, I mean, I was right for years, despite vigorous opposition from people who told me there is this one person who signed the corporate contract for the globalist corporation legacy media outlet, but he's untouchable. He got too big. He broke his leash, and now he's a wild dog or something. No, he's not. No, he's not. That was never going to happen. The Joker. Do you believe in the afterlife? No, I believe in reincarnation, actually. Branch Covidian 19. I early voted for Paul Vallis in the Chicago mayoral election. Some of the polling has Shitefoot getting knocked out in the first round. Wish us luck. Good luck to you. Yeah, if Lori Lightfoot loses her job, that'd definitely be live stream worthy news. Reformed Sauron. What do you think of Razor Fist's assessment of Trump versus DeSantis being a good thing for both? Could he be right? Yeah, it's fine if DeSantis gets into the race. He loses, especially if there's a crowded field. We will be touching upon that basic principle later because some of the unipartyist neocons are really goddamn afraid of that happening. Oh my God, the sharks will circle and Trump will end up winning with 45% of the vote because there's just too many people splitting up the non-Trump vote. But yes, we will admit to one thing, which is that in the context, it appears that Tucker Carlson is partially referring to the ability of Trump to fuck the network over. But that's not exactly an exoneration now, is it? Your network is only covering him positively because you're afraid that he'll break your toys otherwise and divert people to OAN or something. This is not out of principle. It's not because you agree with him. It's not because you actually want to look into the things he thinks that you should look into. It's not because of any of those things or support for the middle class or as Second Amendment absolutism. It's just because you're afraid of him. Well, that would be Fox's MO, of course, because they want the money. Suck duck. When something happens that aliens with the wishes, do you think it's just how hard the math of probability aligning or more like 40K orc through thought warping reality? I'm not 100% what you mean, sure what you mean with that. It's just how hard the math of probability aligning. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking me. My apologies. The Sacred Order of Knightly Valor. Carlson is O'Reilly 2.0. No, because O'Reilly got thrown under the bus, but deservingly. There were multiple allegations against him, and you had actual audio of the interactions. When you have a recorded voice conversation that O'Reilly said he never wanted to talk about with him drunkenly, purportedly, sexually calling a new employee there and talking about his ding dong and things like that and wanting to, what was it, scrubber with a loofah sponge or something like that from behind in the shower and weird fantasies like that. That was fireable. Yeah, he deserved to be fired. You had the actual audio there, which is, it wasn't released because it was settled. Oh my, how that audio would have gone over. Can you imagine Bill O'Reilly saying like weird sexual stuff to you? How gross that would be. Ozzy's Robots, you missed the greater danger than Barney. Baby Bop. Dr. Zeoden, I was watching you since the 2016 election live stream. Fuck Fox, and I don't know Tucker Carlson until after the election happened. Yeah, I've been warning people of this, but nobody paid me any heed. A lot of people would say, no, Sticks, you're totally wrong. Tucker's one of the good ones. He reads QAnon threads or something. Dude, he's too busy counting stacks of money to read the fucking QAnon threads and shit like that. Get real. Mr. Reborn, when did he say this? I want to check it out. It's in the Dominion filings. Link in the description, by the way. Archived, of course. You can peruse that story for yourself. There's a lawsuit against Fox for $1.6 billion. And the private messages and emails and so forth of some of the people on Fox pertinent to the lawsuit are now being put in the court filings. Because it shows that the way the liberals are casting it as well, the people at Fox knew that this was a bunch of bullshit that Trump was saying, but they reported it anyway. So it's defamation. They knew it was false, but they reported it. I don't give a shit about that side. I just give a shit about the fact that Tucker Carlson has borne out my opinion of him. I'm taking the win. Mr. Day Night School, MDNS. Channel advertisement. I am on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble. Overall, I cover economics and psychology, classes I actually teach. Okay, you can check out Mr. Day's Night School on multiple platforms. Wish I could highlight the comment for Rumble, for the Rumble chat. You can look it up anyway. Next news story. Of course, I talked about this morning, but it is important enough so that I need to cover it again. Fetterman is currently at Walter Reed. He's seeking treatment for clinical depression. Now, I'm not going to dogpile a dude who really, he hasn't done anything so far in his Senate role anyway to piss me off. Even if he's a leftoid, he rants about guns and shit like that. I'm not going to dogpile him just for taking time off for having depression because I'm not a scumfuck. I'm not ghoulish. He hasn't started a war. He hasn't voted in favor of war. Well, other than some Ukraine funding, but the Republicans are doing that too. So, don't be a fucking hypocrite all your life. So I won't bother about that. But here's the thing. If you're in office, you're being taxpayer funded. The taxpayers are effectively, supposedly your boss. They're the ones paying your bills and shit. You've got a Senate salary. It's nice and cushy. If you can't do your job because you had a health scare in the last couple of days that triggered your pre-existing depression and sent it into overdrive, because you're probably thinking, oh my God, I'm feeling dizzy and shit like that. Maybe I'm having another stroke, and you get all frightened over it. I can imagine it would be frightening, if you have a stroke, and it's presumably not a pleasant experience for anyone that has one. And then you start having symptoms that kind of sort of align with maybe, hey, I'm going to have another one. I can imagine that causes severe depression and anxiety. I have sympathy for him for this. But if you can't do your job, and if you knew this could be a problem, but you refuse to bow out of your candidacy and allow someone else to run against Mehmet Oz, that's a real big fucking problem, because the people of Pennsylvania deserve to actually be represented by someone. Now, this is the only race, other than maybe Mastriano, by the way, in the whole country where the Uniparty kind of sort of did have an actual point. Mehmet Oz was a weak candidate. He was Trump endorsed. He was ignored largely by the Uniparty. He was a weak candidate. He managed not to seal the deal against someone who now is cognitively on his last leg. He's completely incoherent, and somehow still, even though they had a live debate, Mehmet Oz still managed not to seal the deal in a state where there was no honkening, by the way, going on. That does show that at least in that one instance, the MAGA crowd ought to have followed my advice and endorsed somebody else. I was never taken in by Mehmet Oz myself, although in the end I was like, well, Fetterman's gone off the rails enough so that you might as well endorse him. You might as well vote for Mehmet Oz, but there's no compelling reason other than the other guy's nuts. I have sympathy for him, having depression and strokes and other problems. And at this point, I think there's another thing that we need to say. I get the feeling that he's being forced to keep his position, basically, because he's compelled by his wife, it seems. His wife is a trophy wife. She's clearly out of his league, although, the opinions may vary. Younger, et cetera, et cetera. Whenever she interacts with the press or whenever they're in public together, especially when they were there at his inauguration and taking the family photo, she really does rule that fucking goddamn roost. She is not the sort of stand by behind your man person. She's the stand in front of your man for the picture person. She rules the roost. I have a goddamn feeling that he would already have left this job position or never have sought it in the first place if he wasn't effectively worried with a wink and a nod and a little smirky face, hey, I'm your little devil, don't piss me off, that she would leave him if he was not Senator Fetterman or didn't try his hardest to become Senator Fetterman. Now, before his stroke, I think that this made sense. I'm in politics. I'm kind of a rising thing. I've got this weak Republican potentially running against me. I'm going to throw my hat in because, get me sex, basically. But then he has a stroke. He should have decided to say, no, that's enough. I can't fucking do it. I'm not going to be able to deal with the stress of this job and all of the other problems that I have when I have this particular medical condition. Now, I have a feeling that with his weakness some days ago prior to this, which is related, by the way, to that other event, I guarantee that. I have a feeling it was just he accidentally took a second warfarin pill or something. His blood pressure dropped and he felt, flauw, as they would say in Dutch. He felt a little dizzy, lightheaded and stuff, and then he went to the hospital, but it triggered his long-standing depression, which is understandable. I mean, you had a stroke, a major stroke. You're not that old, really. You've had a major stroke and you're like, oh, shit. Anytime that something feels a little bit off, you're worried you're going to have another one. That's too much stress for a person to deal with. I have to sympathize with the fucking far left anti-gun Democrat in this one and say, look, ignore whatever puppet masters are forcing you to be in this position. Drop out. You'd be probably resigning at this point. I think you still keep your Senate pension anyway. You've got the money and just do that. Start a podcast. Trust me, you don't need to worry about scheduling and stuff. It's much lower stress because people will forgive you if you don't operate on a schedule. You don't have to show up for votes and stupid shit like that. Who wants a schedule? Jesus Christ. Why you came. So if we're busy counting flaws, who are the good ones? On Fox? None of them. Sparky, remember Tucker drove to Mar-a-Lago to convince Trump to overreact to Hong Kong? I don't know if I can fully say that. Yes, I do remember that. James Flowers, I'm not too worried about aliens. If they don't have FTL, then they have to commit to spaceflight on the evolutionary scale. Their tech might rock us, but it came to a slap fight, we would wipe them out. Maybe, maybe not, but I don't think they would want to have a slap fight with us because, there's so many allergens and oxidizing agents in our atmosphere that some aliens might not survive the descent. Our planet might effectively be in a quarantine zone. Duckverse, after your overdose, you said you were depressed and or anxious and weren't happy. How did you get out of it? Over time, it solved itself. I just kept mentally reminding myself, this will pass. It's an imbalance in my brain that's the result of trauma. Over time, it will slowly go away. And then I focused on other things. I made myself busy. So doing literary work, doing my videos, gardening, hiking, whatever I could do, I took my mind off of it. And eventually it just took care of itself. But it took years. BW, that makes me glad I never watched him. But still, I'm so tired of these leftoid wins. Now, with Feinstein retiring, they are going to get another far leftoid in office. Well, I mean, she is a leftoid. It's just she was a useful idiot on the filibuster. So otherwise, other than that, nothing really changes. I don't think they'll end up with the votes after 24 to get rid of the filibuster in the Senate, which is the good news. Suck duck. Sorry, typo in terms of organized religion. Do you think combined thought on a belief, and if it comes true, if is probability or Warhammer 40k orcs believing something and so it warps reality to happen? I believe that collective consciousness can warp reality. At least in the indirect manner, we know that this can happen. Collective consciousness can allow people to build a consensus reality that even if it's not real, they change their behavior to strive towards and to achieve. It can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. As far as the direct, more mimetic approach, jury's still out in many people's minds. I have my own views on that subject. Gary Carter, thank you for your reporting, Sticks. Always on point. Thank you. Josh Zick, as an author, any advice on writing a successful, interesting book? Traveling several months now, completing my bucket list, writing about my travels. Yeah, just make sure to format it properly and edit it multiple times would be my best advice. POD is pretty good. As long as Amazon keeps offering it, I will continue to do editing on Amazon. I don't know. A lot of people have a problem with Amazon as a company, including the far left. Well, there is at least one really useful service that they have that's netted me hundreds of thousands of book sales, actually, over the years. So I'm not going to complain too much about Bezos. Sparky, Scott Adams is a useful idiot. Helped get Trump to overreact too. Yes, Scott Adams, who has blocked me in a rage because I told him that he took the L at one point. The number one schmuck. Will the GOP try to get everyone else to drop out and endorse DeSantis in the primary to keep Trump from taking advantage of a crowded field, similar to the Biden v. Bernie 2020 Dem primary? They may very well attempt to do that. They're probably paying people not to run at the moment. Seth and Wolf, shout out to Aussie's Robots. Grevin Share, I love how the government kept alluding to shooting down aliens when they were covering for shooting down 3 school projects at 400 grand a pop. Technically 800 grand for the one over Canada because they missed with the first missile. Yeah, I was going to put that in, but I had too much news to cover. Aussie's Robots, pre-bunking is a disturbing trend of more control. Exactly. Drennan, I vanish the demon known as Barney to the depths of hell, to the likes of Stolas and Moloch. The power of Kek compels you. Yeah, maybe I should do a video where I do an exorcism of Barney the dinosaur to drive the demons out of his soul and Barney back into the netherworld. Conserve a Cuck on Rumble sent a buck and said clank. Next news story. Oh boy, I love this one. This is from Mike Sington. Now, I've linked him out a few times before because sometimes he's unintentionally correct, although he inverts reality the way it really is. This is about Don Lemon and his comments about Nikki Haley no longer being in her prime. Now, of course, I mean, it's technically right, I suppose, but, you know, it was obtuse. I don't like Nikki Haley. I would never vote for her. You'd be crazy to take her up as VP, and you know Trump might fly the coop and actually do something crazy like that. After all, he did have Pence aboard back in the last election. But I'm not a fan of Nikki Haley. But when you start talking about when women are in their prime, and you're in your mid-50s, by the way, Mr. Lemon, just to be clear, it looks obtuse. Don Lemon has been apologizing up and goddamn down in the last 24 hours because of this. But here's Mike Sington's take. He is a liberal. He is like core CNN, MSNBC, like leftoid legacy media watcher. He's a craptivist for this particular ideology. And this is what he has to say about this, because I haven't seen a single person defending Don Lemon. Don Lemon buried himself this morning with sexist commentary that no one asked for. Now he's trying to dig himself out with a tweet. CNN this morning has been a disaster, and the ratings reflect it. Ouch. You have lost your core audience, Don. Oh my fucking God, how big a fucking goddamn loser can you be? It'd be sort of like if no one was clanking anymore. Like I alienate everyone who supports MAGA and suddenly become an anti-gunner or something like that. Like that would be the shattered remnant of my audience would probably be bigger than what Don Lemon at this point is clinging to. There's a reason that they took him down a peg and kicked him out of his own show and gave him a co-host that he doesn't even like. And there's a reason why he keeps doing shit like this. What he's trying to do is he's trying to be edgy. He's trying to generate, little quips and stuff that people can tweet about and make little clips of and put it online so he can regain popularity. He's trying to do like basically the millennial thing, but he ain't a millennial. He's like 56 or some shit. And it's not working because he's too obtuse and he's too unintelligent to make it work. He pisses people off. He pisses on people. He's a constant fucking goddamn embarrassment. He's completely talentless and nobody likes him. So I love the fact that Don Lemon, the censorship supporter, the anti-gunner, the goofball of all goofballs, basically on Twitter. Like he posts inane shit constantly. I'm glad he's getting taken down another peg. I'm just wondering how many pegs are there before he falls off the board? How long before CNN decides to just can him all together and say, you know what, Don, it's just not working. Your show sucks. Nobody wants to watch you. We just hired Greta Thunberg. Ratings will double. Yeah, they'll still be low, but at least we'll be pulling in a profit. At some point, they may axe him. Yeah, look forward to Fox News eventually hiring him because they don't have any standards. The Agao faces uncooked popcorn plus high fructose corn syrup. Opinions? I hate popcorn. And most of the foods in the Netherlands don't have corn syrup in them. It's the reverse of the United States. The food here is healthier. And there's a reason why most people, when they come to Europe, lose weight. I haven't because I chow down on fricandel and shit like that, but many people do. I'm going to be making soup tonight with some of the leftover gravy, actually, from the stew that I made a couple of days ago. I'm going to modify that. I would have made barley soup, but I can't find barley anywhere. It doesn't seem to exist in the Netherlands for some reason. I'm going to put fucking oatmeal in it. Merritt Harbor sent $10. No comment. Thank you very much. So much clanking, I see. Fire down below. Hey, Sticks, do you think there was a supernatural element to Rasputin? Yes, I believe that Rasputin absolutely was a very spiritual individual. He pissed off the aristocracy and members of that sort of class, which is a good thing, in my opinion. He ended up getting assassinated. He did manage to escape several assassination attempts, which should have been surefire. He does seem to have been a well put together individual. Some of the stories about him are hyperbolic, but overall, I'm very interested in Rasputin. I'd love to make a video on the subject. I've touched upon it before, but I've never made a one-off video. I should probably do that. Thank you very much for the suggestion. I'll add that to the docket after the live stream. Sparky. Funny, one of the UFOs shot down by the F-22's missile likely belonged to a hobby balloon club whose balloon went missing in the same place. Yeah, can you imagine a bunch of high school kids or something? They've got like a $12 balloon and they float it up because they're like, hey, I'm going to put the GoPro on this and we'll get, altitude footage and shit for a while. And then the U.S. Air Force shoots it down. And the last thing that GoPro records is a massive ass explosion before it goes black. And it costs $400,000, by the way, to do that. Can you fucking imagine? They'll be talking about that for their whole rest of their lives. Yeah, Biden, man, he's such a douchebag. He killed our balloon and shit back when I was 12. They'll be talking about that to their grandkids. James Flowers, I would call him a bitter fruit just for the name pun. Anyway, next news story is definitely important. We've got another East Palestine update. Now, this is not the only clip, although link in the description, you can watch this. This is with J.D. Vance, related by Jack Posobiec here. He agitates some of the water in a creek that's in the area that's been impacted by the train derailment in Ohio. And it is supposedly the water is perfectly fine. Your wells are safe. There's no carcinogens. Water testing said everything's A-okay. I have a feeling that they didn't do a full test of that water, if that's what they came up with. He sticks a stick in the water, and all of a sudden a bunch of oily residue and shit bubbles up from the bottom, and there's like a sheen on top of it. There's another video that was posted by Conservative Clips, actually, that shows a chick in the same area throwing an object into the water. Again, it disturbs the sediment, and the oiliness rises to the surface in fairly thick patches. I believe it. Again, under normal circumstances, I would say, well, I mean, we can't tell whether that residue was in the sediment anyway. There could be a refinery upriver, and there's some residue that comes out from that, or a brewery or something like that. And so we don't know what the oil is. People in that area, if you happen to be living in the East Palestine area near a creek in Ohio, I would suggest this. Agitate the water and see if you can replicate that, and get clips to me if you can. It will definitely end up in a video. That's number one. Number two, skim that oil off. Keep agitating it. Put it in a container, let the oil separate from the water, and attempt to titrate the water out to the best of your ability, and then send it into a lab. Or maybe you have some really science-inclined friend who can, look at it and see what the fuck it is. I have a suspicion that this is not just a little bit of gasoline residue, although with a train derailment, you may have a fuel leakage, and this might be some of it. It seems a little bit excessive, and I'm assuming these are in multiple locations, so I wouldn't expect that the residue would settle into the sediment and then be, restorable by simply agitating it. It indicates that it's heavier than water, separates from the water, enters the sediment, sort of gets trapped there, and then by agitating the sediment, it comes up. Is there any reason to believe that some of this won't end up in the water table and end up in people's wells? And the government there is saying, yeah, everything's perfectly fine. And the Biden administration days ago, of course, telling these people, no, we're not going to free up FEMA funds. It's not really an environmental disaster. You know why they're doing that? It's not just for political reasons. The county is strongly Republican. That's only part of it. It's because of the race of the people in that county. They're just not woke and diverse enough. You can't give money to these people. It's like 99% white people. White rural rednecks with suspender snappers and MAGA hats and shit like that. They ain't getting no federal money. Where have we heard, by the way, oh, wait, I talked about it a few days ago. A major scandal involving a FEMA non-response that ended up being totally justified in the end. Oh, that's right. It was Hurricane Katrina with George W. It's becoming even more like a Katrina moment for the Biden admin. Pete Buttigieg is probably shaking in his pudding panties right now. Jens Peterson. Hey, people. Seth here. The Landlord Harassment Channel. Breaking. Styx Hexenhammer hired as new YouTube CEO. I wouldn't accept the job. I'd have to go to the San Francisco area regularly. No fucking thanks. Seth and Wolf. Clankety clank clank. Many clanks today. Ozzy's Robots. Fox News in aggregate as an enemy of populism. Yeah, exactly. I mean, even let's say that Tucker Carlson weren't controlled opposition. Let's say he really were principled and he's just there because he has a huge audience. Well, if every other fucking slot on your network is people saying Orange Man bad, then what the fuck is the point? Okay, for 1 hour a day, you have programming that's actually, in your name, fair and balanced or whatever. 1 hour a day. Every other hour is nothing more than globalist neocon propaganda. How absolutely wonderful of you. You're so brave. It's like if I were to make 24 videos a day and 23 of them were a bunch of leftoid hot takes where I say guns bad, orange man bad, white people bad, manliness bad. Here's a new report on why you need to eat double your soy intake. But then one of those videos that I make out of the day, I spend 5-10 minutes talking about how steak is actually good once in a while or something like that. That would be a little bit lopsided, wouldn't it? Denine-S, have you followed any of the House hearings on the Twitter files? A little bit so far. I'm not so much for following like congressional hearings because it's so fucking boring. I'd rather just wait for an analysis of those. Generally, I like to do a deeper dive into news, but I don't know. I just don't have the time in the day to keep tabs on what Congress is saying. Sigil Stone 17 on Rumble. People need to stop pegging Don Lemon. He likes it too much. Yeah, that poor dude. He's really screwed himself now because now he's run afoul of feminism. Null hypothesis. News now says first weather balloon was really a weather satellite. This looks like a distraction from the Palestine, Chernobyl, Ohio train wreck. Eric writes, weird question because you can also have an interest in the occult and maybe psychology. Do you believe that serial killers might have overdeveloped threat detection systems, amygdala, combined with overactive self-preservation? In some cases, they might. In other cases, they just seem to have been horrifically abused and they're just all zonked out developmentally. Sparky, it might take months for the bad stuff to soak in to the water table. Yeah, but the thing is, it's already there and no proactive measures are going to be taken to remove it because they're not going to get FEMA funding. Next news story, Koffler, Biden is turning Ukraine into another Afghanistan. Now, I agree with this, in part. Here's how. Ukraine is becoming the United States' next Afghanistan, but it's not becoming the next Afghanistan a la 2001 to the recently present. That one, full invasion, occupation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, from 2001 to 2022. That's not what it resembles to me. It resembles our first influence in Afghanistan a la the late 70s and early 1980s, under Jimmy Carter and then Ronald Reagan. The United States government armed and funded the Mujahideen because we were more worried about the Soviets. We said, look, we're not fans of the Mujahideen. We realize there are extremists among their ranks, among other various things. But the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We can't allow the Soviets to open a channel to the Indian Ocean. So even if we're not huge fans of this group, and the US government has not been huge fans of Zelensky or any prior Ukrainian incarnation for a long time. Look at old reporting on them if you don't believe me. But they're serving a good purpose because they're opposing a group that we're geopolitically opposed to. And so we're going to arm and fund them anyway. We'll run propaganda for them. We'll call them heroes, etc. That's what it more closely resembles. Now, the problem is that after we armed the Mujahideen and so forth and funded them, they did win. They drove back the Soviets. The Soviets went back to Russia, and it did help to cripple the Soviet Union, which is, I guess, good in a way. The problem is that then all of those cheap and available weapons went into arming terrorist groups. And they didn't stay in Afghanistan, now did they? We've already seen weapons sales, illicit ones on the black market from Ukraine to other areas in the world. Are these weapons going to show up in Venezuela? Are they going to show up in Mexico? Are they going to show up somewhere else? Are they going to show up in Afghanistan, ironically enough? Yes, they will. Will there be battle-hardened partisan mercenaries from Ukraine who have scars all over them and fucking tattoos and no memory of how many people that they killed, that end up getting really, really jaded? Something goes wrong in their life, they snap and they kill 100 people. Yes, that will happen. Will there be people who we are now training to make explosives and learn how to use them properly, who will commit terrorist acts as the result of our actions? Absolutely. But it's continuously justified in propagandistic fashion because Putin man bad. Russia bad, ergo Ukraine good. Doesn't matter who the leader is, doesn't matter what happens. We're defending democracy. We have to then mop up the problem 10, 15 years from now. That's exactly what happened with our first foray in Afghanistan. You can say, hey, the Mujahideen, at the end of the day, they did stop the Soviets from establishing an Indian Ocean base and therefore helped to destroy the USSR. And communism bad, Soviets bad, ergo that was good. Okay, that's fine, but it also led to 9/11. There will be problems down the road as the result of the U.S. intervention in Ukraine. Can you call it justified? We don't know. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future. We don't know exactly how many of those fighters are going to go off the battlefield and go crazy or something like that. But it will happen. And then there will be people long down the road who said, I was always against that war. I was always against that intervention. I was always against it. I thought it was a bad idea at the time. And then you'll check like their archived tweets and you'll find out that they were glowingly in praise of Zelensky or something. Saipan Patriot, the Biden admin inactivity should be focused on a lot more. Hello from Saipan. I would agree. Jens Peterson, where in the USA do you find a tech company with the least pink-haired freaks and ESG nonsense if you were to apply for work? Probably have to go to Texas at this point. A lot of the smaller firms have moved there. Joseph Price, I'm trying to explain to my friend why critical race theory is bad and why the Black national anthem divides us. He's thinking about joining the BH Israelites. I don't want to lose my friend. If he's thinking about joining the Black Israelite movement, your friend may be a little bit far gone. Show him the critical race theory debunked booklet that I wrote, and maybe he'll change his mind. I mean, I'm debunking it from the point of the media that supports it. That's the easiest way to do it. Take it from the mouth of the horse, what CRT proponents actually proclaim, and then go through line by line and debunk it. Kathleen Cohn. Fetterman is likely hanging on so he can qualify for lifetime medical coverage, at which point I think he'll quit. That is a possibility. Ground Floor Guthrie. Hey, Sticks, off topic. A few months ago, you mentioned that a historical ancient individual that may have presaged the story of Jesus. I'm down a Gnostic rabbit hole, but I can't remember the name of the person. There are multiple. I think you might be thinking of Apollonius of Tyana or Tyana. Apollonius. There are some big similarities there. Slab, are there black people in the Netherlands? Yeah, there's a fairly large Moroccan community, North African mainly. But yes, there are people from Africa that live in the Netherlands. Ozzy's Robots, if Russia did in Mexico what NATO did in Ukraine. Yeah, exactly. You're also giving a cause for the Eastern Bloc to fuck around on the American continent. Baba Yaga, you realize the U.S. is the evil party on the Ukraine crisis. I would disagree with you. Doesn't matter, though. Russia is winning handily in their goals of denazification and demilitarization. About 300,000 dead Ukrainian soldiers so far. Yeah, I keep hearing these hyperbolic takes from both sides, by the way, about how many people have died, and it's always massively lopsided. That depends on who you listen to. As I pointed out when Ukraine was first invaded, fog of war has already kicked in long, long ago. We don't know what the death count is. I have no clue how many tanks each side has. I have no clue about their logistics, and neither does anybody goddamn else, unless they happen to be upper echelon or political within those two countries. I would hazard a guess that it's basically a 50-50 sum game about what happens from here on out, but they're ruling out diplomacy over and over, so the fighting will continue and more people will die and suffer. Hark to Shark. I hate you, you hate me. Let's tie Barney to a tree. Yeah, that won't contain him for long because he's now a digital demon. Necromancy has revived him. The Grizzly, as it stands, do you think that the East Palestine American Chernobyl incident is enough to knock Train Dracula out of the running for 2024, or is he actually insane enough to continue despite this? That depends on the level of coverage and also the number of cancer cases around there in the next year or two. I hate to say it. More health problems, more problems for Buttigieg, ironically. Sparky. Russia should absorb all Ukraine back into Russia, or else the West will make leftover Ukraine a constant headache for them. Also, with Ukraine as part of Russia, they won't need to have a puppet government. Yeah, I mean, if the Ukrainians want to be Russian, that's fine too. I have a feeling that in the end, it's going to be a years-long, frigately ever-changing borders and millions of people eventually being killed. Many of which will not be combatants, sadly, on both sides of the border. Next news story. It's from the Financial Times. The Republicans have an acute Trump dilemma. This is a shit piece about MAGA, basically. I'm not going to bother going through the article, but long story short, they are very worried, and I alluded to this earlier in the stream, that the race for GOP nominee will become packed. And the reason why is this. Donald Trump does not have a majority of the party solidly behind him. He's averaging in the mid-40s. That's a pretty big minority, though. If he can maintain even 35, 40 points of solid support, and he could drop to that at some point, it depends on what he does, if he bothers to get back on Twitter, and a million other things that happen. He wins if the field is packed. He doesn't necessarily win if there's only one other viable opponent. If you end up with Trump v. DeSantis, one-on-one, I would still favor Trump, but there is a chance that he loses. Because if a massive swing of the more independent side of GOP partisan voters favors DeSantis because of age or something, and it would be astroturfed, I guarantee, by the legacy media, because they think that DeSantis is easier to beat, then DeSantis would win. Otherwise, Trump would win. But if it's Trump versus DeSantis versus Pence versus Christie versus Haley versus Bolton versus Pompeo versus Rubio versus Cruz, the list goes on and on. If you have 8 or 9 people in the race, there is nobody who is going to be able to stand a candle to Donald Trump. He has too much ingrained, hardened support. People who would drag their balls through goddamn landmine in order to vote for him. There is no other candidate that has that advantage because none of the others have ever been the president of the United States. Those who really like the job that Trump did, which is a significant minority of the Republican Party, and I don't mean just people who approve of him, that's like 85%, but people who really, really approve of him is a massive total within the Republican Party. Only with 1 or 2 other candidates is there any chance that Trump doesn't win every primary, in my opinion, other than maybe Florida. Even Florida, after Super Tuesday, could potentially go for Trump. That would destroy, by the way, DeSantis' career. If DeSantis does jump in and he does not win Florida, he's toast. And he knows this, which is why he's being hesitant. Other people want him to potentially throw away his career just to stop Orange Man right now. I would advise many of DeSantis fans, you do realize that a lot of people that are encouraging him to run actually don't like him. That's literally why they're trying to do that. Aaron Bennett, what can we do about this pre-bunking nonsense? This is getting pretty Orwellian. They tried to mini-true via Gov. Now they are trying to go through corpos. Yeah, fuck them. Just start making content on new tech and get all of the content creators that you know. So, I mean, I do this. Every single day I share out my links to new tech. I make exclusives on new tech. Get other creators to do the same. Most of them, they have a Rumble channel. They have a BitChute channel. They are on Substack, but they never talk about it. Well, if you don't tell people that those presences exist, I wonder why I've only got 5,000 subscribers on BitChute and I've got 500,000 over on YouTube. It's because you told people once about it and you never addressed it again. You just plop the link in the description. All you have to do is drive more traffic to these sites. We could double the size of new tech in a week. If all of the larger content creators just put in the kind of effort that I do every single goddamn day, just for a week, that's all. You could double the size of Rumble. You could double the size of BitChute. I'm not nearly the largest content creator that's on these platforms, but I'm the only one who routinely talks about their existence. Well, not the only one, but, the main one, I would say at this point. That's what we do. Go around pre-bunking by using sites that aren't doing pre-bunking. Vote with your feet. Peter is my first name. YouTube channel, Dr. John Campbell. I can't read the rest of that out because it would be labeled medical disinformation. Whether it's true or not, of course, you can make your own mind up, but people can read it anyway in chat. Yes, there are certain things we're not allowed to say on YouTube. If it were Rumble only, I could say it. That'd be funny. Cold Summer 91. I keep hearing about people joining the Black Israelites more and more. It's actually getting concerning. On the other hand, if they get more relevant, it will be entertaining and hilarious to watch. Yeah, they say some weird shit. They were the ones that actually caused the problem there that Nick Sandman was part of years ago. The Black Israelites had gathered there in order to basically protest everyone. And they were hurling insults at Nick Sandman and at the other kids that were there, as well as at the Native American marchers. And the drowning out of the Black Israelites is what caused the kids to be dancing and chanting, and what caused, it seems, the hyperbolic drumming and so forth with the Native American marchers. They then ended up in their confrontation, and now Sandman is a millionaire because of the Black Israelites. At least that is my understanding of those events. I'm not concerned about them. I think it's meme-worthy. But yeah, I can imagine their membership is popping off. Sparky, Ukraine is much better off as Russia than as a colony of the West overrun by carpetbaggers like it was pre-invasion. It will be run by corrupted people regardless of which bloc it happens to be part of. The Grizzly, the longer that he takes, the less likely DeSantis is to run. It's already almost March and he hasn't said a word of running. I'm not sure he will at this point. I thought he was going to, but I could be wrong about it. He could be waiting till the end of the year to announce. That is possible. Maybe scoping the field, seeing who else is in. Of course, again, if there's 5 or 6 other people in the field, why would you take the risk? If more people than just Haley and Bolton run, I think it becomes more and more, less and less likely that DeSantis gets in, the more and more people get in. I think he's waiting. He realizes that he has pole position other than Trump if he does get in, but he wants to make sure that he's not going to have his vote diluted. That's what it boils down to. By the way, please send no more super chats. We're running up on 50 minutes, and I still have a couple of stories to cover. Ozzy's robots. Tim Pool last night claimed through gain of function they evolved. I wonder if I can say that. They evolved viruses through gain of function, and some of them got more deadly, basically. Yeah, it's entirely possible. A la una en punto. What's your opinion on peak oil? Doesn't exist. Oil is created through the bacteria in the Earth's crust, chemotrophs maybe, digesting material and shitting it out, and then simple osmotic processes. It's not the result of dead dinosaurs. It's not rock decomposition. It's all the bacteria that live in the Earth's crust, and then differential pressures. That is my theory anyway. BW, DeSantis has to know that if he waits and supports Trump, he'll basically be coronated for 28. Can one Republican not be stupid? Can we get one win? Yeah, that's the other thing. If DeSantis doesn't run and simply says, hey, I've had my problems with Trump, but he has my full-throated endorsement, well, that'll keep the MAGA voters on board, the ones that gave him his 20-point advantage in the election. And then, of course, Trump would turn around and do him a solid, give him a reach around in 2028, and then he would run. Nathan Cook sent $10. No comment. Thank you. David, Trump pushes the ouchie and loses election in 2020. And he rolls over and is silenced in 21-22. Meanwhile, DeSantis shows his quality the whole time. You will note that DeSantis also pushed the ouchie, just to be clear. In fact, they're very much alike on many issues. I do admire DeSantis for keeping things generally open there and for ignoring the Biden admin's threats. I don't think he's a bad person. I just think that Trump should seek re-election and is the better candidate. Musings of a Witch's Path. I'm in the process of writing a stage play with zero experience in the field. Yet I think it's a decent story that some may like. You're an inspiration for me to give it a try. That's the way to do it. You never know until you try. Sigilstone 17. Susan getting replaced with an Indian. Seeing how there are many in tech leadership and how they run it, I think India is going to become China 2 electric boogaloo for the West and its political system. Yes, India is beginning to absorb Chinese business. I see this as a good thing, by the way. CLK. Sticks and fellow clankers, have a great weekend. And to you too. Sigilstone 17. I hope those weapons end up on the black market. Then I can finally get my hands on all those toys the government made illegal for citizens to have. Yeah, probably not the greatest thing to post publicly. Shh. Sigilstone 17. Watching the black Israelites tell a Jewish man the Austrian painter did nothing wrong was... can I say that on YouTube? I'll skip that little part. They had no answer due to neoliberal brain and couldn't call them racist. Need more. Yeah, I mean, it's basically a meme. You'll remember that, when they were talking about the Holocaust, actually. Next news story, speaking of bigotry. Laser projectors again used to show racist and extremist messages in Amsterdam. That's here in the Netherlands. Not in Amsterdam, but it was before. A new video was shared in Telegram group showing another incident of a laser projector used to show racist or anti-Semitic slogans on the side of the building. You will never guess what some of the messages are. One of them said, "Love and make white babies." Okay, so you like babies and you're white and you reproduce, you have sex, you have child, which people who believe that their demographics are disappearing, the easy solution is just to get your dick wet, just saying. How is that racist? How is it? It's funny that they would invoke anti-Semitism. The other one said, "Rip Dresden," which of course involves the Dresden bombing by the Allies, the firebombing of a significant proportion of the entire civilian population. It was a war crime, by the way. It's not discussed that way quite as much as the atomic bombing of Japan, with, I think, roughly similar casualties to Nagasaki, actually, because, of course, they were Nazis, so it's okay to kill them, even if a bunch of kids and women and shit that were non-combatants died. How is that anti-Semitic? It'd be like if you broadcast, rip to the Holocaust victims, uphold the right of Jews to exist or something. Would that be anti-German? It'd be the same basic premise. Why the hell is this anti-Semitic or bigoted in any way? Make white babies? What if I had a sign up, a laser projection on the side of some business in Amsterdam that says "make black babies"? Do you think that the police would come and make a stink about it, or the media would even talk about it? No, nobody would give a fucking shit. Make more anything babies, other than this one particular group of people. They should not be encouraged to do so. There are people out there that are bigoted towards white people, and they don't like such things. And they get attention, and that's why they fear them the most, because, of course, these sort of stunts get actual press coverage. Nathan Cook, I'm new to Superchats. Is it possible that voters aren't stupid? They just aren't the ones voting. Yeah, a lot of intelligent people are so black-pilled they don't go to the polls. It has become a problem. Lime in a microwave. Your videos help me go through a recent breakup more easy. Any tips to heal quicker and become better? Clank. Don't put a lime in a microwave next time. I'm just joking. Focus on something else, like build a new skill, a new hobby. I encourage people to do these things. Learn to cook a new dish, one that you really, really like with all your favorite ingredients or something, like I'm going to be doing later, actually. Peter is my first name. Dr. John Campbell, YouTube channel is worth checking out for topical data and news. I'll put that up on the screen, so there's a little shout out there. By the way, I think there's 7,000 people watching live cross-platform. Yeah, there are. Another excellent stream so far. Transylvanian 90. If you question the narrative, you're an NSDAPer. Yeah, I mean, I never knew that you were a Nazi if you told people to love children. Not in the way that like Weinstein or Epstein would like children, but you think babies are cute and stuff, and like, oh, maybe I'll have a baby. It'd be cuddly and they roll around and do cute things, and then start trying to chew on electrical cords and things like that, and they smell awful sometimes, except right after a shower. Zwitsal, by the way, which I think is Dutch, it smells really good. Now, our daughter's hair smells amazing after she's had a baby shower. It's like it's almost like a sun-warmed hay smell, or like chamomile or something like that. I think it'd make a good tea. Maybe they should branch out. They should have a new marketing strategy. But I never knew that you were a bigot if you said, hey, white children are cute, have a white child. Well, I mean, if you put up a sign that said have more mixed race children, I don't think anyone would call that bigoted, because they couldn't. Josh, how do we convince creators to switch to new tech? Cajole them constantly. Demand it of them. They will listen to you. If they get 20, 30 messages every single day saying, hey, you should really focus more on your other channels because you're half a step away from being banned on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, where you're making your main content, maybe some point they'll realize that it's real. Sparky, Martin Luther was from around Dresden. Allied bombing destroyed a lot of Protestant artifacts and other physical heritage. Yeah, they bombed churches. They destroyed all the Christians dropping the bombs were burning their own churches up. I condemn the firebombing of Dresden. It was unnecessary. The Nazis are in retreat. There's better ways to deal with things than to kill 100,000 civilians. Focus on the combatants. You killed 100,000 people. Eyes wide open are yours. Why won't Legacy touch Palestine adequately? The Legacy media doesn't want to inconvenience the Biden administration, so they're not going to talk about the East Palestine derailment as much. Ogmauser 98. Hey, Sticks, I'm in southern New Hampshire, and we had rust-colored rain overnight. Possible Ohio contamination? It's possible. Look at the prevailing weather patterns, though. I think that weather pattern took most of that shit out to sea after it passed over the southeast. It's more likely there was a dust storm from, Arabia or something that dusted over. By the way, again, please do not send any more super chats. I have one more story to quickly cover. Pilgrim Media, Sticks, House and Pfeffer, Fricassee, yummy. Juan Carlos Villaveses Duran, Mr. Electric, yeah, for your spaceship repair. And then the final news story, of course, especially important to those tuning in on YouTube. Susan Wojcicki is stepping down as the CEO of this proud website, which means that change is coming. And considering the pre-bunking story that I covered this morning, you should look up that particular video. I don't see good things coming for YouTube. I think they're going to begin another purge. The pre-bunking thing, I think, goes hand in hand with this. I think that Wojcicki, because, even if she's an authoritarian, she's not anti-censorship. She likes AstroTurf, the leftoid content, etc. It might even be a little bit too far beyond for her. It sort of reminds me of Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey was a censorious prick running Twitter, but he was less of a censorious prick than the people that were in power towards the end of his reign. There's a reason that he left. It wasn't just because, Twitter might get acquired. Twitter's stock is having issues. That was only part of it. Another part of it was he was effectively being ignored by the people that he put in charge. I think Susan Wojcicki is experiencing the same thing. Feel sorry for her, actually. After 25 years at Google and many, many years as YouTube CEO, she's choosing the particular moment to exit right as YouTube is announcing sweeping new plans to tackle disinformation. Why do I get a feeling that these two things are linked? And I think that she doesn't want the fallout. If there's an investigation into it by an incoming GOP president or something, she doesn't want to have to ask questions. Well, I exited. I wasn't there at the time that this was happening in the 24 election. You can't do anything to me. I wasn't the CEO. I wandered off to go paint or so with George W. or something like that. It could be a rat jumping the ship in the most literal sense, saying, hey, YouTube is going to have a problem. I don't think I'll be able to defend this, and I don't want to do it legally, so I'm gone. It could be just she disagrees with the change in general. She might be not censorious enough to believe that the YouTube people should be literally astroturfing even more than they already are, which could do harm to the platform. Because if you do it too much, eventually, yes, despite its dominance as a video hosting platform, YouTube could falter. It's already lost market share in streaming. It's already lost market share in short form video, especially to TikTok and also Rumble now. It's certainly losing steam against Rumble and BitChute in regards to one-off video creation, and there's more innovation happening on other sites. They have actual viable competitors now. One wrong move, and all of a sudden they end up MySpace. Is what could happen. I hope that doesn't happen, by the way. I'd rather them just back off the fucking censorship. YouTube's great as a jukebox. I don't think it's going to stop existing just because of the massive plethora of music on the platform. But it could definitely lose the political and news market share, and that's a big proportion of the content that goes on the site. Sparky. A trip to a Protestant convention in Dresden in 1934 by MLK Sr. inspired him to change his name and his son's name from Mark King to Martin Luther King. I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Anyway, I think that I'm going to go offline now to the over 7,000 people that watched live. I thank you very, very much for your support. Of course, I do not stream on weekends. You can look forward to Monday as the next live streaming date. One more chat. Sigilstone17. Have white babies is anti-Semitic? You know, if you don't want certain stereotypes being spread, then maybe don't act like them. No, I think that was the part about racist messaging. The Remember Dresden one, I think, was construed as anti-Semitic. But again, remembering what is ostensibly a war crime that is still debated low-key to this day as to its relevance, in which a shit ton of civilians died. And that wasn't the only Allied firebombing that happened over targets that were largely civilian. How does that have anything to do with the Jews? It has to do more with this is a war crime. We killed a bunch of people who were not part of the war. They were civilians, there are children, there are women, etc., and they all got burned alive. That has nothing to do with Jews. It has to do with the decisions mainly of the British government, more than anyone else, actually. That's about all. Peace out.